grace has taken care of you. Even before you knew there was a God, grace was still there. And he made a way out of no way. Look at the response of this grace. David discovered that one of Jonah's sons was still living. And when he looked at this boy had had some hard times. He was there hiding. He is one that because when they got after them, when the army got after them, he wasn't but 5 years old when his handmaid took him under his arm and took off running, tried to save his life, but she dropped him and broke his feet and broke his legs, that they would never ever be healed again. Well, let me tell you something. God can take what seems to be your impropriety and turn it to something that's still good. Oh yes, he doesn't look at your past. He doesn't go back and examine what you've been through. He could care less. He recognized, I got grace to cover everything. I wish I had somebody in here that wasn't so mean and can remember when you didn't have nowhere, when you were down in the depths of despair, when it seemed like sin had beaten you up and robbed you, left you half dead, but God sent grace that picked you up and still made to, I'm going to make something out of you. Here's the good news I see in this story. I'm going to go ahead and close it, because when I look here, when David looked and saw Mephibosheth was in trouble, the first thing he said, he was down in Lawndale. Lawndale means no substance, nothing there. It means that I don't have anything left. I've come down to nothing, and somebody in this room have already decided I've come down to nothing. I don't have a job. I can't get a job. Everything, I'm losing everything I have. I look all right, but the truth of the matter is I'm in Lawndale. Everything I got seemed not to be working for me. But let me tell you what David did. He said, I tell you what I'm going to do. Go and get Mephibosheth and come here to me. Because first thing I'm going to do, I'm going to give you everything that belonged to your granddaddy. Yes, sir, I know it belongs to me, but I'd rather not hold it. I'd give it to somebody that's in need. Every now and then you got to give up some of your own stuff to be able to give grace to somebody else. I don't understand it for the life of me, how you always want to be blessed but can't bless nobody else. I don't understand for the life of me when you know that God has made a way for you, but you forget from which you come. When I look back over my life and remember I was a little poor nappy-headed boy in Grover, didn't have anything, but God made a way out of no way. Every now and then I got to look back and just see how good the Lord has been. No wonder they call it amazing grace, because it is amazing the way the Lord will see you through. He told Mephibosheth, I understand you ain't got no feet, but grace takes care of your improprieties. He said, that's all right. Come here, Ziba. He go and call his servant and say, what I'm going to do, I want you to get all that land and farm it for him. I want you to farm it and let him get all of the product he can. You work it for him and make sure he eat. And to make sure that he don't run out, I'm going to bring him every day to my table. And I want him to eat at my table. Well, let me tell you how good God is. Because there are times I didn't have anything, but it's God that brought me to his table. Every Sunday morning when I go through trials and tribulations, he brings me to his table. He said, I put a table before you in the presence of my enemy. And then I will anoint your head with oil. I pour into your cup until your cup run over. Is there anybody know that grace has run your cup over? Yes, you can afford to give something to somebody else, because God will see you through. I don't understand a church. I don't understand the people who hold your hand so tight and can't be a blessing. You can't determine grace. Grace ain't determined by you, but grace is determined by God. Yeah. Oh, yes, it is. When I look here, he embraced grace. Lawndale means no pasture. Ain't nothing growing in my field. And there's some of you who says, I don't know how I made it. Don't know how I got this far. I don't know how it is when I look back and see what others have and I don't have it. I used to wonder, how did I make a way? Well, the first thing, the best way to get grace from God is you got to have an humble heart. You got to be able, Mephibosheth comes to David, and he's aware, as a descendant of Saul, he deserves nothing from the judgment of this king. When you go to God, you got to humble yourself and recognize, God, I ain't looking at nobody else. It ain't because Bird got on a good coat. It ain't because Houze have on a fine suit. I don't know what they have or what they need. All I know is what I don't deserve. Stop looking at everybody else and remember, you don't deserve it. It's only because God has been good to you. It's only because He made a way out of no way. Yes, sir. Let me go back and I can tell you how good He's been to me. When He told me that your lot has come to a place that I'm going to call on you to be a blessing to somebody else. I had to take D in. I can remember only 3 months old. And I say, honey, how in the world we going to make it? We got this little house. We can't do anything in here. We can't hardly turn around in this room. And God said, take in one more. And I said, God, I don't know what you're doing. He said, just trust me. And I remember I said, God, if I'm going to be able to raise them, I got to have a place bigger than what I have. If you can't give me something a little better than what I have. I remember riding by the home I now live in. I said, God, give me that house. He said, ask me for it. I said, God, can you give me that house? He said, go stand on the porch and ask me. I went on the porch. I said, God, you know I can't afford this, but you can. And when I stood on the porch, I felt the presence of the Lord falling on me. When I looked there, I said, God, I can't pay for this. He said, I didn't ask you to. I told you that I'll make a way out of no way. Yes, sir. And then it came to, I got a call, and he says to me that now, talk to the man. The man that owned the house, when I talked to him, he said unto me, he said, well, I don't need a house. He said, well, what do you have down? I said, I don't have anything but my house. I'll trade you my house. And he laughed at me. He had a good sized house. I had a little house. He laughed at me. I don't need another house. And as soon as he walked out, the Holy Spirit said, as far as he knows. And as soon as he walked out, it was by that night I got another call saying, where is your house? I told him it's down in Grover. He said, come here. He said, I'm going to come and take a look at it. My wife and I, we got up cleaning. Got up and trying to wash it and make it look good. When he come, he didn't even come in the house. He stood in the yard and stood there and said, well, you come on and I'll talk to you about it. He told me he'd give me something to trade. And he said, well, you got to have about $10,000 more to be able to get the house. I said, I ain't got nothing. He said, well, I don't believe I can help you. And as soon as he walked away, the next day he called back. He said, do you have $7,500? I say, no, I ain't got no money. And God said, don't you worry, because you ain't going to need no money. Yes, sir. And then he went on, he come back and called me again and say, do you need, can you come up with 5,000? I said, no, sir, I don't have 5,000. He called, and they had the bank to call me. And they say, Mr. Houze, he want to give you that house. But what he wants you to do, he want to split the difference. If you can come up with $2,500, he'll give you $2,500, and you can get your house. He said, and I said, I don't have the money. He called me back later and said, do you have 1,000? I said, no, sir, I don't have 1,000. Then he called me back. He said, the man said he would give it to you today if you can come up with $1,000 and be able. I said, sir, I don't have the money. And then he said, well, I'll tell you what I'll do. You got to come up with something. I'm going to divide it in half. And if you'll get $500, you can have that house. And I say, sir, if you come all the way from $10,000 down to 5, you can give me the whole thing. He looked at me. He said, go ahead and sign it and give him the house. Well, let me tell you something. I'm not through with that. Because then he looked at me and said, I get a call. I didn't know I had it. The bank called me. He said, Mr. Houze, tell me something. When can you get down to close the deal? I said, I don't know. When you want me to come? He said, come. He said, you probably need to bring anywhere between $2,500 to $3,000 to close the deal. I said, okay. Okay. I said, God, you heard that? You heard that? And I went down there and I sat down. We sat down at the table. All the lawyers took the papers out and began to lay the papers and say, all right. He said, now you need to pay. Before he get out his mouth, the man said, don't ask him. He ain't got no money. He said, let him go ahead and have the house. Well, let me tell you something. Let me tell you where I am, because it ain't because of what you've done. but it's because God made a way out of no way. God's grace is bigger. And so no wonder the devil is angry. He can get mad. He can say you done this, but I ain't just anybody. I'm a blessed child of God. I know I'm blessed from the crown of my head to the sole of my feet. God has blessed me. And I want you to know, be careful, because I'm anointed, because the power of God said that you are a child of God. When God's grace has been on you, don't look for friends to affirm you. Know that you have been confirmed in the power of God. Thank God for grace. Thank God for mercy that keeps on keeping me. God bless you. And let me tell you, that's the reason I say to this church, you ought to stop talking about what you don't have. God ain't ever moved on what you got. He's always moved on his grace. If you can believe all things, y'all didn't hear that. If you can believe, he said all things. Somebody say all things. All things are possible unto you. No good thing will I withhold from you. To them that walk upright, he'll give grace to the believer. He'll give grace to the hearer. Stop talking about what you don't have. It ain't grace, that's you. Because grace say, I'll give you what you don't deserve. I'll give you what you can't even handle. I'll make a way out of no way. Oh, I feel good in my soul. Because I don't know where God has made a way. He picks me up when I'm down. The enemy comes along and knocks me down. But I found out I got resurrection power. Because every time I get knocked down, I get up with more power than I went down with. That's the good news about resurrection power. God will let your enemy come in, but your enemy only comes to make you stronger. God bless you today. I've said enough. But no wonder they call it amazing. And listen. Remember that according to Mephibosheth's family, David was an enemy. Look at what God will do. He'll make your enemy feed you. Did y'all hear that? Trust in God. He'll make your enemy feed you. He'll put you on pork and beans and make your enemy feed you steak. He wasn't being fed outside. He was being fed by the king. How many of you know it's better at the king's table? You got to learn to be fed by the king. God bless you. I've said enough. Come on, let's bless the Lord in this.